It made a splash at Sundance and with critics, and now it's on the screen for, frankly, a tougher audience. Detropia is an absorbing look at modern-day Detroit, so how will it play in its own epicenter? Very happy to have with me two of the filmmakers behind Detropia. The director is Heidi Ewing, who's originally from Farmington Hills.
That's right.
Great to have you here. And the producer, co-producer and cinematographer, Craig Atkinson. And Craig, you're originally from Royal Oak.
From Royal Oak, yep.
Great to have you both here, and off to a great start with the premiere Thursday night, and now the last couple of nights showing on the big screen here. But it's interesting, you've been at Sundance, which is as big as it gets really in the film world, but your nerves really kicked in now, right?
I've never in my career ever been as nervous as I was last night showing a film to anyone. I was dropping things. I was, you know, it was like I was having a stroke every 5 minutes. It was nerve-wracking. I mean, my parents live here. Most of my family, I went to school in this area, and I love it. And this is a tough audience, and this is a tough film. So the combination of those things, you know, I was kind of expecting the worst.
Craig, same thing. You got a lot of local people kind of want to weigh in, friends, family. It's a different feeling, isn't it, all of a sudden?
Completely. It's been personal the whole way, just being from here and coming back and seeing it through a different lens. But certainly when you share it amongst your peers and they know your history and they know everything about you, it's a totally different experience.
I've described it to a number of people as a very elegant film, and I think the cinematography is a really interesting, big part of that. It is difficult, I think, though, to try and people ask me what Detroit's like, and my answer is always it's very complicated.
Yes, it is.
So when you set out to make a movie about life in Detroit, it is very complicated. Where do you start? How do you try and not make it about everything and yet make it about something?
About something. It was really, you know, taking on a city, we never tried that. We always take on, you know, in Jesus Camp, we took on a tiny summer camp. Usually we start very small and then we tell a larger message. In this case, it was, there's nothing bigger than taking on a city like Detroit. We landed here, we moved to Detroit, and we sort of said, speak to us. What is the story here? We didn't really come in with an agenda, which was wise, but at the same time it was scary. So we talked to hundreds of people, bar owners, politicians, journalists, bloggers, baristas, and we finally culled from all of those people, a story started to emerge. And it really wasn't just a story about Detroit that emerged, it was a story about this moment of national anxiety we're having in this country and which way we're going to go. And there's no place that's feeling that and has felt the effects of globalization, of the economy's downfall, than Detroit City. In
fact, you made the choice to not really, a lot of documentaries are narrated by someone, or there's sort of expository, you had very little expository stuff on the screen. You really let Detroiters tell their own story.
Sure. Yeah, not only not with the absence of narration, but I think also with the visuals and being patient with it and letting things come in and out of frame and just breathing with the city and being here. We were here for over 2 years, and being here for that amount of time, things can naturally unfold in front of the lens, and rather than trying to breeze in for a month and cram in you know, a quick story. And so I think it made all the difference of just one, being from here and helping to guide, you know, where to start looking.
How did you pick because you've got a group of I guess 5 or 6 people who really are, as we look at some of the clips here, really are the stars of this movie. How did you come to settle on them? Because I know you talked to hundreds of folks.
We did, but I think they naturally rose to the top just because of, you know, one, they're middle-class Detroiters that have chosen to stay here, and they have tremendous wisdom, you know, because they've been here for the last 45, 50 years, and they naturally rose to the top as we saw that, you know, the themes could tell a national story, and they were the voice of that.
Tom Long, in his review on Friday in the Detroit News, I thought hit it on the mark. He said too many of these movies about Detroit, and as you know, it is a target-rich environment for filmmakers.
Absolutely.
Too many of these films fall back on 2 stereotypes. Number 1, that race caused all the problems, or that number 2, the young bohemians are going to solve all of Detroit's ills, and you really didn't fall into either one of those sort of conclusions.
You know, it's really, really easy and it's convenient to just say it's race, you know, it's the fault of the union, it's the fault of the big 3, it's the fault of Coleman Young, etc. And it's just, that's easy, and it's nice to talk about it at a cocktail party and just break it down real quick. But if you really take a thoughtful approach to a city like Detroit, there's a lot of blame to go around, let's just call it that. And also, you know, this new narrative that also the New York Times style section and Martha Stewart and everyone's picked up is that the creative class is saving Detroit. and Detroit is a blank slate for these new bohemians. That's also kind of offensive because Detroit's not a blank slate. So it's too simplistic to say it's being saved by someone, it's been destroyed by another. So we took an approach that really sort of didn't really decide to place a fault in one specific spot, but tried to live and emerge and sort of look at the effects of a lot of decisions on the people who still live here.
Well, in fact, people have asked me, is it a tragedy that we're watching? Does it end up being hopeful? It's a lot of things. What would you say it ultimately means or does to you?
To me, it's authentic. I think it's an authentic portrayal. I think there's good, there's bad, but in the bottom line, it's real. It's a real portrayal, and spoken from the voice of people who have been here for a very long time, and also from the new perspective, the new voice. But at the end of the day, I think that it's an authentic portrayal of Detroit at this particular snapshot in time.
I think there is some understandable weariness and resistance among Detroiters to sort of be everybody's lab rat, and to have everybody coming in look at what's going. I mean, nationally. What do you think people are taking away about Detroit? Because Detroiters have one sense of perspective coming in to watch this. Nationally, maybe there are, it is more of a blank slate on people coming in who don't know what's going on.
You know, it's so funny because a lot of Detroiters have said, well, this movie's going to make us look bad because, you know, you show a lot of things that are tough. And I tell people we are
overly sensitive about
I know,
that. There's no doubt
little
about
thin
it.
skin,
Yes.
tough, but thin skin.
Right.
But no, we've been showing it at film festivals for 6 months, and I got to tell you, every time we show it, at least 6, 7, 8 kids in their 20s, maybe early 30s, walk up to me and they go, I want to move to Detroit. And people in Detroit are surprised to hear that, but there's something about this place where there is opportunity, and people can sense it in the film. There's been tragedy. There is opportunity here, especially for college graduates who can't afford to, you know, live in a city like Chicago or New York. They say, I could make it in Detroit, and I could start a business, and I could contribute to a place like Detroit. So actually, on the national sense, I've been really pleased that a lot of young people find this to be sort of intriguing, an allure to come to Detroit.
Same thing, you seeing that?
I absolutely seen that. One thing that comes to mind is we had a screening in a very wealthy community in the Hamptons, and one lady came up to us after and said, my God, she like, you know, we hear that the bailout worked. We thought everything was A-okay in Detroit. And I think that, you know, people are starting to get like a more of a nuanced idea of what that actually means. The bailout worked. Okay, let's look at that a little bit deeper.
Well, it's just like the Eminem, Clint Eastwood, the 1-2 punch of suddenly from one day to the next, while we were filming, suddenly everything was okay in Detroit. And when we started making the film, everyone's like, I heard it's tough in Detroit in 2009. We're halfway through the edit, and they were like, I heard everything's fine.
I got to leave it there. Make sure you get out and see Detropia. Thanks, gang.
Thanks so much.
Meet the Press is next. See you next time on Flashpoint.